Hello everyone, it's Allison from QuiltNCode. Welcome to the Mystic Vineyard video series. I'm going to walk you through each and every block that we do throughout the eight months that have actual blocks that you're making, and then the 9th month where we put the whole quilt together. And this is the quilt right behind me, and so this is what we're going to be working on for the next 9 months. All right, so this is your very first block. And the whole purpose of my video series is to give you tips to make the block easier. I can't give out direct measurements or anything like that because I'm putting it directly on YouTube. But if you are interested in getting the kit or sewing along with us, then just contact us at QuiltNCode.com and we have the kit ready and waiting. At least I know we have a few more left, and so you better get in there quick. And so let's get started. Block 1 consists of fat eighths, and so you will receive 8 different pieces of fabric, okay? I want you to, before you even do anything, recognize that the greens are very similar, your purples are really similar, and your lavenders are also very similar. And so the very first thing I want you to do when you get your kit is to notice that on your pattern, you're going to have the different fabrics that are in each block listed right down here. And then I want you to say, okay, so this is fabric D right here. It's got this nice ferny look. So I am going to go ahead and label this as D. I use just stickies and a pencil and a pen. And then I take a clip and I keep that D on that fabric. And I do that with all of my fabrics so that I can keep everybody straight. The difference between this lavender and this lavender is a floral lavender. And so this floral lavender is going to be G, and I will label it G. And then I will go ahead and clip a pin, use a pin to clip that to it. And then you can use a pin, you can use baggies, you can do whatever makes it easiest for you, but make sure you go ahead and label each one of your fabrics first. So number 1 of every single pattern that you get throughout the series is going to be the fabric requirements for that month. It's going to tell you which fabrics that you're using. You've already gotten that. That is our step. We have already provided you fat eighths for all of these pieces. All this is right here, the FQ, the FE, and the FS, simply mean that the fat quarter measures 18 by 21, a fat eighth measures 9 by 21, and a fat sixth will measure 4.5 by 21. But this is not something you need to worry about. We are providing that for you. Then you get to step 2. Step 2 is your cutting instructions. This is where you get started. This is where you want to start doing your cutting. And so if you'll notice in the very first one, you have D and G. These two colors right here are going to be cut the same exact way, so you can actually stack cut those if you would like, and you feel comfortable doing that. And then you're just going to follow the instructions for cutting all the way down the list. There is one right here that gets a 4-inch strip cut, and then you subcut that into different cuts. And so H is going to give you a little bit of a, you want to make sure you read that a couple of different times, but other than that, everything else is straightforward with month 1. Okay. The only other thing I wanted to point out on the pattern was that they give you the colors for J right here in step 3, and that's the very first step that they're working with. And that color looks an awful lot like one of the lighter purples. And so I just wanted to point out that J really is this color, and that you're going to be putting it onto the black. And so I think what they were doing was just trying to make it so you could see that black line going across there for how they want you to mark and cut that. And I just wanted to point that out, that this is the darker color, not the lighter color. I love the pattern because in this in particular, this step, they say that you're going to do a diagonal line across all of your dark purples. So your J and your H are all going to get a diagonal line. And so I have used chalk for this step just to make sure that I can see it. I tried using a dark friction pen, but that did not work. And so they have you drawing a diagonal line across all the dark purples, and they also have you drawing a sew line. So that is your cut line, and they want you to draw a sew line. So I don't need to do that because I'm going to use my sewing machine in just a second to simply use my cut line and stitch 1/4 of an inch on either side of it. But I wanted to point that out, that you don't necessarily need to put that step in there. I simply used my ruler to do the cut line across all of my blocks. All of my dark purple blocks. Okay, let's sew. The pattern is very clear how many J's you put with how many O's, and how many H's you put with how many O's, and how many H's go with M's. And so just read the pattern. That's very, very clear. Okay, now I have moved my needle position over so that I can follow the line and get 1/4 inch on each side. I can go ahead and chain piece these so I can bring the next one in right behind it. And so on, so I can do all of them at the same time. Then I can come in on the other side and stitch on the other side. And I can chain piece these as well. So the next step is to cut these apart. And when the pattern says that you need to cut 8 or have 8 of these, that means you're going to have 4 sets of these. And so the end result is that you want to have 8 of these pieces. And then I like to make sure that it's pressed really well before I go squaring. And squaring is just essential for any quilt. And so what you're going to do is press this nice and good. And then you're going to take your any squaring tool that you like. I have 2 right now that I enjoy. I like the Perfect 5, and then I also like the Stripology. And so I actually, for squaring, like the Stripology is now my go-to. But I'm going to show you how to do it both ways. Okay, so if I'm doing it with the Perfect Square, either way, you just want to make sure that you are putting your, you are lining up that diagonal line where the diagonal is that you've just sewn. And you want to make sure that there's fabric outside of all the pieces. And so then you're going to want to cut. I need to move my, so I can cut away from me. I'll move that up for you so you can see it. So always want to cut away from me, and this is why I'm starting to really enjoy the Stripology that I'll show you next. And then I can turn this around this way, and now I have a square there, and I can take my Perfect Square in here, and I can use that diagonal again right along that line and trim off these sides. And now I have a perfect square, and this is just essential. You can see how much I've cut off. If you leave that there, it's going to make your blocks look really wonky, and it's going to frustrate you in the end. Okay, so let's do it a different way. I'm going to take my my piece, and I am going to press it really well. You can finger press, it's fine, or use a roller, but you just want to make sure that thing is good and flat. Okay, so now I have my piece. I'm going to take my Stripology, and let's see here, probably need to move the camera up. And so I am doing a whole number for this. So my whole number is in the black. And I actually have 2 diagonal lines on my Stripology. And so it's really easy. It's much easier to line up because I have 2 diagonal lines. I'm still making sure I have fabric outside of my square. And then I have 2 lines that I can cut, always cutting away from me. That's really, really nice. I can turn this over, and now I have horizontal lines to work with as well as a diagonal line. And now that I've lined up my diagonal and my horizontals, now I have a perfect square once I give it a cut. All right, now that we've gotten all of those done and nicely squared, we are almost done with creating all the little squares for the block. So now we have these two that we have finished, and these are going to go into this block right here. And the really cool thing about this block is that it goes together so nicely, and you have this nice little nested corner in the center. But the one thing I wanted you to notice is that your two purples are together. So what I'm going to do to get those purples together is I'm going to nest my seams. This was one of the things that I did incorrectly on mine, so I'm sitting here going, I need to make sure you guys know what you're doing. And so, first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we have marked. So where it tells us to do that in the pattern, so that's not a problem. So I've marked down the center there, and then I'm going to nest my seams. Well, I have one that's going one direction and one that's going the other direction, so I want to make sure that if I were to nest them this way, and I open this up like that, you can see that my purples are not together. They're opposite hourglass wise. And so I need to go this direction. And so I am going to actually change the way I have pressed this so I can make sure that my seams nest really well. Oops. And then I can go over here, and now my seams are going to nest, just like that. And that is the key to making sure that center is together. Now, when I open this up for where I stitch, I'm going to have my purples together. All right, so because I'm putting this together like this, I want to do a couple of pins. And I like to pin on each side. So I'm going to be stitching down each side of my line. So I'm going to stick my pin over here and over here. That way I don't really have to take them out. And I am feeling that nest all the way down, not just at that edge, because I'm going to be going down the center. All right. Let's stitch. All right, so now I'm going to cut down my cut line, press open my blocks, and now I'm going to trim them down to their correct size. So I will demonstrate using a regular Perfect 5 or whatever ruler that you have that has a 45-degree angle on it. And so I sort of need to have this going counterclockwise. All right, wait, nope, got to go this direction so I can see my numbers. All righty. So I am using the diagonal line that's going across here, and I'm making sure that I have plenty of fabric outside of my cutting space. And then I'm going to turn it over. And now I have a horizontal and vertical line, as well as the diagonal that I can line up with. So there's one. And then I'm going to use the stripology to do the second one. I just find that the stripology allows me to go so much quicker, which is the whole name of the game with the stripology rulers, is that you can make all your cutting cut down by about 75%. So I have my diagonal line going that way, my diagonal line going that way. I'm making sure that my fabric is outside of my box. Stitch. I'm moving all over the place here, making sure that it's okay still. And now I have horizontal lines as well as diagonal lines. And I have two diagonal lines to follow. That's what makes this particular block so easy to trim down. Oops. Okay, there we go. So here's the layout for the final block. I actually use this right here though on the front of that page to lay out my pieces. And so I simply take my blocks and I lay out everybody 4 at a time where I need them and how they're supposed to be laid out. This guy's gonna go like that. And I have my whole block laid out here, just the way it is laid out like this. And I have 4 of each square so that I can then chain piece each row and finish my block that way. And having only 4 of them there means that I'm not going to have a whole bunch where I have to rip because I put 2 together that weren't supposed to go together. And that's a wrap for month 1. We have 7 more months of blocks to go, and then we're going to put everything all together. So if you would like to join us in this block of the month adventure, join us at QuiltNCode.com. I think we still have a few kits left for you to join us. And if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and all that other social media stuff. Until month 2, this is Allison with QuiltNCode. Happy sewing.